Welcome to the Equity Conscious Leader, a new generation equity podcast and YouTube channel where we chat with leaders about tangible system change and strategies to advance and sustain equity work in their organizations. Our conversations dive deep into the 6 dimensions of equity conscious leadership. So how do you lead with transformational system change for diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging? Let's find out on this episode of the Equity Conscious Leader with your host and educational equity leader, Dr. Jag Lathan.
So we talked about schools, pockets of excellence for schools, and that is a system within itself. But when we think about the broader system, an entire school district, and the systemic changes that need to happen around instruction, around social-emotional learning, suspensions, like how do we take this step, right, of it's not just 1 or 2 schools, but we're changing, you used a term earlier when we spoke around scaling, spreading and scaling. What are your ideas for larger systems transforming work for students? For example, we'll stay with the education kind of example.
My mind is running a mile a minute because when the concept of, and I'm looking at my notes here, of spreading focuses on the replication of something that's working. And so when I think about the vastness of a system and all its departments and leaders and the techs, the analysts, everyone, I think about how whatever the goal of the system is, the outcome that they're trying to move, where you mentioned suspension and graduation rates and performance on assessments and attendance and things of that nature, school climate, all of that. Whatever each department that's responsible for those particular sectors, those particular goals, them being able to identify pockets of the system, as you described, where it's working. There should be examples that they're aware of because they've been listening and learning and shadowing and focus group and having conversations and inquiring
and changing their practice.
So they should be able to articulate where it's working, right? That's a spreading piece. And then taking that data, that knowledge, and identifying what in the system is presenting the scale. Are there any barriers that prohibit the teacher A having a conversation with teacher B, or school A having a sit down with school B to understand how they were able to do this thing and it worked, and what school B needs to learn to pick that up, right? It has to be like an all hands on deck kind of approach, because it cannot be this autonomous, oh, well, the schools can choose how, right? But there has to be an ownership, like we're all responsible for this. Where is my work aligned? Which of these goals does my work align to? And how do I allow for the spreading, right? I have to know the success in order to say what needs to be replicated.
Yeah, in order to replicate it.
Uh-huh.
And also, you talked about barriers, and it is so important. So in dimension 3, is focused on teaming and the importance of collaboration and teaming in order to really move a system forward, because we can't do it individually. And one of the barriers for teaming is around not having kind of those conversations or not having structures, right? And so when I think about barriers for dimensions 5 and 6 around strategic implementation and spreading and scaling, like all of those things, systems have to really look and take an honest look at what are the barriers and how do we begin to move those barriers so people can actually do the job that they do.
Mm-hmm.
And one of our previous speakers talked about, I think she used the word lie, right? Like we know something is happening, but we actually won't say it. No one will say it in the system because they're afraid of something. They're afraid of the superintendent or the board or the principal or what parents are going to think. So it's like we need to get honest and say the reason why this is happening is because some of the teachers don't have the skills, and it's okay. We need to teach them up, right? Even though they come in with a credential in public education, or certifications, depending on where you live in the country, they have the education. It's still a form of anchoring. Like, I have to keep learning. And so they say it. And when I was a principal, I remember there was a program that we used for literacy. And when kids did not understand or they weren't literate, so they weren't reading on grade level, speaking on grade level, or writing on grade level, they would go to this program in 6th grade. I was a K-8 principal. And I was mortified. I'm like, so we wait. They're in 3rd grade, and we know they're not reading on grade level. We wait till 6th grade to put them in this program to hope that they'll learn how to read. Right? Yeah. And so as I walked classrooms, I got it. I was like, oh, not all teachers understand how to teach phonics. And it was in your walking of class. It was in my walk. You had to see and hear and feel what is happening in that space. So no wonder why they can't decode words when they're in 2nd and 3rd grade, because they haven't learned how in the K1 area, right? And so that was something I had to tell the truth about. I had to talk about, and it was for some people really hard, because it's like, well, we don't need to do that. I'm like, yes, we do. We do. That's what we're accountable. Yeah, that's the accountable piece. Yeah, I like as a public employee, as a professional. I'm my old when I worked for the nonprofit, the CEO used to say, "It's not our fault, but it's our responsibility." I am responsible for these outcomes. Yeah. Did I cause them? No. Right. Did any of us in the last 100 years? Probably not. It was probably before that. However, it's my responsibility. And so I can't hide behind this I want to call it like a facade. Yeah. Oh, well, we're doing it. Are you why if we're truly accountable and going to hold not only ourselves as professionals, but our systems as accountable for these outcomes, then we have to be able to discuss it and tell the truth. This is what I need in order to be successful. I need you to teach me how to teach phonics, right? And so we did it as a whole school. So by the time kids got to 6th grade, at one point, some of my teachers were like, "Can we start skipping school kids?" Oh, because the kids became very proficient early. And then the older, the upper grade teachers were like, "So what do we do with them then?" Right. I'm like, okay, for me. So some of you need to go to training for gifted and talented. What can learn how to differentiate and really push learning to a more rigorous pace. And so we engaged in that. But yeah, I think, the training example, when your teachers came to you with that, these students have surpassed what I'm able to offer them. Oh, no problem. We'll support you. Right. So again, what we said at the top of the conversation, focusing the resources and the efforts, the goal still remains. And because the students have now met it, now we're talking about the system supporting the educators to keep pushing those students up. Now, like, oh, we're done. Right. We're never done. Yeah. For as long as the students are alive and breathing, we're never done, because there will always be a change, a morphing, a new learning, a new need that illuminates. Like, there's always going to be something. And so it's this constant, like you said, the conversation, the dialogue. I value so much the qualitative, what you mentioned in the dimensions, qualitative and quantitative measures both being present, because the human piece of the data, of the numbers, is what really informs where we put the focus, and it allows us to be in constant communication, and it also allows the system to not have all the answers, but to instead lean on, okay, let's talk to the principals and see what they what's your experience of this? This is the goal. Yeah. What does that look like at your site? Yeah. And when I think about the organization as a whole, right? So an entire school system, district, it's like what are ways that the system is actually changing? So I'm a board member, an elected official as well. And we are responsible for, one of the things we're responsible for is policy creation, making sure policies are updated, making sure we're in compliance, right? That has a direct impact on classrooms in terms of organizationally, right? And so then how do people, board level, superintendent, cabinet level, program managers, everybody go towards the same goal.
Yeah.
We have the same data. We understand where we're going. And here are the moves we're going to make to remove barriers, right? And I feel like over the years, what I'm watching is that we don't always have that fidelity of practice. And teachers are supposed to do this. We'll work on the paperwork here. But we have to remove barriers.
Right.
That's our job.
And have the clarity.
Yeah.
And the model that you described of all these players, ensure that each of them can articulate, well, here's my piece of work, right? And that is the communication, this constant dialogue of ensuring everyone who touches the system knows this is our priority, even if it's a goal for 1 year or a goal for a semester or whatever the thing is, this is what we're working towards right now.
Right.
Next time we'll work on this. And there's, I think of how you mentioned the systems are so complex, and that's okay. I think the complexity is of value because in a goal, there are so many pieces. And how is each part of the system, each player able to say, again, like clearly that's resonating with me because I'm repeating it, but where I fit in this goal, right? Like that should be the foundation of every conversation of every meeting right, until the goal changes or we move on the goal and move the needle or we meet it or surpass it. It should be it. And yes, we add more goals to it.
And the goal might shift within that goal.
Yeah,
because now we have most kids are proficient.
Right.
You have African American, Latino, English learner students with disabilities, like they're all making moves. So now what's the next goal? How do we continue to further it?
Right.
I so appreciate the conversation with you. I get excited.
I know. I feel like we're just starting.
And I think this is so crucial, the work that you do, the work that you help districts do and schools do, because in order to really shift and make changes, we have to focus on data, but also what you do with the data, the implementation of it, the fidelity of our practice in it, in order to spread and scale. So thank you so much.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much for this opportunity. I appreciate you, Dr. Jai.